The engine of my beat-up Toyota coughed as I pulled into the gravel lot near the dock, the gray Oregon coast stretching out under a heavy sky. I killed the ignition and stared at the lighthouse across the water. A 50-foot stone tower clinging to a jagged cliff, waves crashing against its base like they wanted to tear it down. The keeper's quarters at the top looked smaller than I'd imagined. A weathered box with salt-streaked windows, the beacon's faint glow cutting through the fog. My phone pinged. Lynn, my sister, again. Anna, I saw another article about missing fishermen near those coastal outposts. You sure about this job? I typed back, fingers stiff from the cold. Just got here, Lynn. Can you hold off on the doom scrolling until I unpack? Her reply was instant. Not funny. This feels like a bad idea. You could stay with us until something better comes up. I stepped out, salt air hitting me like a slap, and stretched. The phone stayed wedged against my ear as Lynn's voice crackled. You're going to be out there alone, Anna. No cell service, no neighbors. What if something happens? The wind carried the smell of seaweed and diesel from the small boat waiting to ferry me across. After months of rejected applications and a bank account running on fumes, this lighthouse job felt like a lifeline, not a trap. I need this, Lynn. It's good pay, just for the season. I'll be fine. I popped the trunk, hauling out duffels stuffed with clothes, books, and enough canned food to last a month. I've got a radio check-in at 5. Gotta go. Love you. I hung up, the silence of the coast swallowing me whole. No notifications, no city noise, just the rhythmic crash of waves and the distant cry of gulls. The boat ride to the cliff was rough, the grizzled ferryman barely speaking as he navigated the choppy water. Up close, the lighthouse looked older, its stone pitted from years of storms, the iron ladder to the quarters rusted but sturdy. I climbed, my bags slung over my shoulders, the metal cold under my hands. Halfway up, I made the mistake of looking down. Waves churned against rocks that could break bones. My stomach lurched, but I kept going. The door to the keeper's quarters creaked open, revealing a Spartan setup: a cot, a small table, a propane stove, and a humming mini fridge. The radio equipment dominated one wall, all dials and switches, with a logbook dangling from a chain. But the windows stole my breath, floor-to-ceiling glass offering a 360-degree view of the Pacific, gray and endless, merging with the fog at the horizon. No other structures, no boats, just water and sky. It felt like standing at the edge of the world. I spent the afternoon hauling supplies up the ladder, my arms burning by the last trip. The sun dipped low, painting the ocean gold and casting long shadows across the cliff. At exactly 5 p.m., the radio crackled. Beacon 4, this is base. Check-in, over. I grabbed the handset, nerves jangling. Base, this is Beacon 4. Anna Tran reporting. I'm here and settling in. Over. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. Copy. Beacon 4. Welcome. Weather reports at 700 and 1700 daily, plus immediate alerts for any unusual activity, storms, wrecks, or otherwise. Emergency channel is 12. Questions? Over. I glanced at the darkening sea. None, base? All good here. Over. Roger. Good first night, Beacon 4. Base out. The radio went silent, leaving only the sound of waves and the faint hum of the beacon above. I heated a can of chili and ate at the table, watching the horizon swallow the last of the light. This was what I'd wanted. Quiet, purpose, a job that mattered. Keeping the beacon running and reporting weather felt more meaningful than endless cover letters vanishing into corporate voids. My friend Min Min had tried to talk me out of it over coffee a month ago, his usual pessimism in full swing. 2 keepers before you bailed, Anna. Han and Wen lasted a month, Bao Lei barely 3 weeks. Just up and left, no notice. Probably couldn't handle the loneliness. Min always overthought everything, but I wasn't some fragile urbanite. I could do this. As night fell, I flipped through the logbook out of curiosity. The early entries were tidy: wind speeds, visibility, tide patterns. But Hana's notes grew erratic toward the end. Whispers on the wind last night, not gulls. Sounded like my name. Bows were worse. Shadows in the fog, moving too fast for birds. Something watching from the rocks. His final entry was a scrawl, heard my brother's voice calling from the water. He's in Portland. I shut the book, my skin prickling. Just isolation talking, I told myself. People alone too long start imagining things. The ocean roared below, and I crawled into my sleeping bag, the beacon's steady pulse lulling me to sleep. The first week passed in a blur of routine. Mornings meant scanning the horizon with binoculars, logging wind speeds, and radioing weather reports. Afternoons were for maintenance, checking the beacon's lens, scrubbing salt from the windows. The isolation was soothing at first, the lack of digital noise a balm after years of city chaos. But the logbook nagged at me. I kept rereading Hana and Bao's entries, their words burrowing deeper each time. Something circling the cliff at night, too heavy for a person. I told myself it was just seabirds or seals, but the silence between waves started feeling heavier, like the air itself was watching. On the 8th night, a fog rolled in, thick and gray, swallowing the horizon. The radio crackled at 5 p.m. as usual, but a new voice came through, gruff, unsteady. "Beacon 4, this is Vin Pham, your supervisor. I'm coming out to check on you. Be there in an hour." I frowned. "Didn't expect a visit, Vin. Everything okay?" "Over." A pause, then, "Just routine, Tran. Making sure you're settling in." "Over." The line went dead. An hour later, a small boat's light pierced the fog, and Vin climbed the ladder. His forestry service jacket soaked. He was in his late 40s, wiry, with bloodshot eyes and a whiskey bottle in hand. "Thought I'd welcome you properly," he said, slurring slightly as he stepped inside. The smell of alcohol followed him. "Didn't need to come out in this weather," I said, uneasy. Supervisors didn't just show up unannounced, especially not half drunk. Vin paced the small quarters, checking window latches and testing the door. "Beautiful view, huh? Too quiet, though. Gets to people." His laugh was sharp, nervous. I watched him closely. "Min mentioned the last keepers, Hana and Bao, said they quit suddenly. What happened?" Vin's hand tightened on the bottle. Couldn't handle the solitude. Started hearing things, waves, wind, their own heads playing tricks. He took a swig, avoiding my eyes. "What kind of things?" I pressed. He shrugged, too casual. "You know, ocean sounds. Seals barking like voices. Isolation makes you paranoid." But his hands shook, and he kept glancing at the windows, like he expected something to appear in the fog. Around 10 p.m. a sound broke the silence. Slow, heavy footsteps crunching on the rocky cliff below. I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth, chili dripping back into the bowl. "You hear that?" I whispered. Vin's head snapped toward the sound, but he waved it off. "Just waves hitting the rocks. Happens in fog." The steps continued, deliberate, circling the lighthouse base. I grabbed my flashlight and moved to the window, but Vin stepped in front of me. "Don't," he said sharply. "Why not?" His eyes darted to the glass. "Sometimes you look out and something looks back." My pulse spiked. This wasn't just whiskey talking. The footsteps stopped, but a new sound started, scratching like claws dragging across the tower's stone base. Vin backed toward the center of the room, his breathing shallow. "What is that?" I demanded. "Nothing," he mumbled, but his voice cracked. "Just the wind." The scratching grew louder, moving up the lighthouse walls. I gripped the flashlight tighter, my mind racing. Vin's behavior, the logbook entries, the sounds, it all felt wrong. "You said Hana and Bao quit, but they wrote about hearing voices, seeing things. Did something happen to them?" Vin's laugh was brittle. "They got spooked, that's all. Packed up and left. City folks don't last out here." But he'd said spooked like it was a curse, and his eyes kept flicking to the windows. The scratching stopped abruptly, leaving an oppressive silence. Vin slumped into a chair, the whiskey bottle nearly empty. "I should stay," he slurred. "Make sure you're safe." But his presence felt anything but safe. By midnight, he'd passed out, snoring unevenly, the bottle rolling across the floor. I covered him with a blanket and lay awake, listening to every creak of the lighthouse, every wave that sounded too much like footsteps. Morning brought gray light and an empty chair. Vin was gone, the blanket folded neatly, a torn scrap of paper on the table. His handwriting was shaky. "Don't trust anyone, especially me." My stomach dropped. The door was still locked, the windows latched. How had he left without a sound? I made coffee, trying to shake the unease. The radio check-in at 7 a.m. was normal, clear skies, moderate winds, but I hesitated to mention Vin's visit. What would I say? My drunk supervisor showed up, scared me, then vanished? I logged the weather and kept quiet, focusing on routine to stay grounded. That night, the fog thickened and the footsteps returned, louder, circling the cliff with purpose. I shone my flashlight down, but the beam caught nothing but rocks and foam. The sound stopped when the light hit, like whatever was there knew I was looking. At 3 a.m., the scratching started again, sharp, deliberate, climbing the stone walls. I froze in my sleeping bag, heart pounding. The marks I found the next morning confirmed my fear. Deep, parallel gouges in the stone, 20 feet up, too precise for any animal. I took photos, my hands trembling. These weren't seals or seabirds. Something was hunting me. The third night brought a storm. Black clouds rolled in, the sky turning a sickly green. The radio warned of gale-force winds and rogue waves. I secured the shutters and checked the beacon, but the lighthouse shook as the storm hit, rain pounding the roof like gunfire. Lightning lit the quarters in stark flashes, thunder rattling my bones. I huddled on the cot, the wind screaming through the tower's iron framework. Around midnight I noticed it, a message scrawled across the north window's shutter in dark smeary streaks. They're gone. Not debris, not storm damage, deliberate, blocky letters. My phone's camera shook as I snapped pictures. Who could have written this in a storm like that? The wind howled, but no human could have climbed the tower in those conditions. When Vin returned the next evening, he was different. Calm, almost cheerful, but wrong. His forestry jacket hung loose, his face gaunt, eyes too bright in the lamplight. Settling in, Anna, looking good up here. His voice was too smooth, rehearsed. You okay, Vin? You look sick. He laughed too loud. Never better. Been eating clean, getting exercise. But his skin was gray, his frame skeletal. I showed him the photos of the gouges. Something's climbing the tower at night. He barely glanced at them. Seals. They climb rocks sometimes, normal coastal stuff. His dismissal was too quick, his eyes avoiding mine. I swiped to the window message. What about this? They're gone, written during the storm. He shrugged. Debris in the wind, looks like words if you stare too long. But his hands twitched and he kept positioning himself near the radio, blocking the windows. At 10 p.m., the footsteps returned, heavier, joined by scratching that echoed from multiple sides of the tower. Vin acted like he couldn't hear it, but his eyes gleamed with something like excitement. You should eat, I said, offering soup, watching him closely. Not hungry, he replied, patting his sunken stomach. The sounds grew louder, claws testing the stone, the lighthouse trembling slightly. Vin, something's trying to get in. He smiled too wide. You're imagining things, Anna. Isolation plays tricks. But his face twitched, a ripple under the skin, like something was moving beneath it. My heart stopped. You're not Vin, I whispered. His head tilted at an impossible angle, eyes reflecting light like a cat's. Of course I'm Vin. His mouth stretched, showing too many teeth. It lunged, faster than anything human. I grabbed the flare gun from the emergency kit and fired, the bright red light searing its chest. Black, oily liquid sprayed across the floor and it screamed, a sound like splintering wood and dying animals. I stumbled back, grabbing a utility knife as it staggered, its face peeling away to reveal something wet, dark with too many joints. You killed Vin, I said, voice shaking. You're wearing him. It laughed, using Min's voice now. Anna, help me. I'm hurt. Then Hana's, please, open the door. I backed into the radio room, slamming the door and locking it. The creature pounded against it, wood splintering as more scratching came from the outer walls. I fumbled with the emergency radio, hands slick with the creature's black blood. Mayday, Mayday, Beacon 4. I'm under attack. Creature's not human. They killed my supervisor. Need help now. Static, then a woman's voice. Beacon 4, this is Coast Guard dispatch. Clarify the attack. Wildlife or human? Neither, I gasped. They mimic people, change shape. One was Vin. A pause, muffled voices in the background. Copy, Beacon 4. Rescue en route, ETA 15 minutes. Barricade yourself, don't look at them. Wait for our signal. Boat lights directly offshore. The line cut out. Outside, the creatures tore at the door using Min's voice. "Hannah, I'm bleeding. Let me in." I shoved crates of supplies against the door, my chest tight with panic. The scratching multiplied, claws carving through the lighthouse's outer walls. I counted glowing eyes through the radio room's small window. 5, maybe 6 pairs, circling the tower. The door buckled, a hole forming as long, jointed fingers reached through, feeling for the lock. "Almost there," Hannah's voice cooed. I gripped the knife, my back against the wall. The storm's roar mixed with the creature's keening, a cacophony of terror. Then, a new sound. Searchlights cutting through the fog, the hum of a Coast Guard boat's engine. The creatures screeched, retreating from the light. Heavy boots landed on the lighthouse platform, voices shouting commands. "Survivor in the radio room," someone yelled. A woman in tactical gear kicked through the broken door. Officer Mai Lei, auburn hair tucked under a helmet, green eyes sharp. "Anna Tran, you're safe now. They hate bright light." She helped me up as her team swept the quarters, one holding up a shred of skin that looked like Vin's face. "We found Fam's body on the rocks below," Mai said softly. "Dead at least 4 days." My knees buckled. The real Vin had never made it to my first night. The team secured the lighthouse, their floodlights keeping the creatures at bay. As they escorted me to the boat, I saw shapes slinking into the fog, their eyes glinting one last time. 3 weeks later, I sat in a sterile Coast Guard office, facing Mai Lei across a metal table. A folder lay open between us, filled with photos of torn-apart lighthouses and maps marked with red X's. "These things, skinwalkers, have been hunting coastal outposts for years," Mai said. 12 keepers dead across 6 stations." I stared at the map. "You knew and still sent people out there?" Her jaw tightened. "We suspected a pattern but didn't know what until your report. We've shut down solo assignments now." The official story called the deaths shark attacks or rogue waves, a lie to keep the public calm. "What about Hana and Bao?" I asked. "Found their bodies at their stations," Mai admitted. "Partially eaten. These things feed on fear as much as flesh." I couldn't tell Lynn the truth. She'd think I'd lost my mind. The Coast Guard offered compensation and therapy, but I signed their confidentiality agreement, knowing no one would believe me anyway. Mai gave me a card with a phone number. "There are others like you survivors. Call if you need to talk." Back in Seattle, I moved into a noisy downtown apartment, the constant hum of traffic drowning out the silence that now terrified me. But the memories lingered. Vin's peeling face, the voices, the eyes in the fog. 6 months later, I sat in a therapist's office, Dr. Nguyen's calm voice pulling me back to the present. "The marine conservation work going well, Anna?" she asked, pen poised over her notepad. "Yeah," I said, glancing at the busy street outside. "Desk stuff, data analysis, some urban site visits, no remote locations." I'd chosen the job for its safety, its noise. "How's the sleep?" she pressed. "Better," I lied. Nightmares woke me at 3 a.m., images of glowing eyes and splintering wood. A white noise machine and constant lamplight helped, but the fear never left. My phone buzzed. "Lynn checking in. Call when you can. Worried about you." Dr. Nguyen noticed. "Your sister?" I nodded. "She thinks I quit the lighthouse because it was too boring. Easier that way." I hadn't told Lynn about the skinwalkers. Instead, I joined a network of survivors, people like me who'd seen things no one else believed. We called each other, sharing stories that sounded insane but felt like home. A woman in Maine, a man in Alaska, our experiences mirrored down to the mimicked voices and claw marks. Last week, a new case surfaced. Divers missing near a California pier, blamed on sharks, but the survivor's story matched ours. "You feel responsible for them, don't you?" Dr. Nguyen said, reading my silence. I didn't answer. How could I explain the weight of knowing? The creatures were still out there, hunting in the quiet places where help couldn't come fast. A call came during our session, an unknown number, Oregon area code. "I need to take this," I said, stepping into the hall. "Anna Tran?" A shaky voice, young female. "I'm Lynn Chen from Olympic Peninsula. Marcus in Alaska gave me your number. Something got me in the woods." My heart sank. "You're safe now?" I asked. "In Portland," she said, "but I can't look at the ocean without panicking." I gave her a contact closer to her, promising to check in. Back in the office, Dr. Nguyen waited. Another survivor? I nodded. They're increasing, or I'm just noticing more. She set down her pen. What does helping them look like for you, Anna? I didn't have a full answer, but it started with listening, believing, connecting people who thought they were alone. The city buzzed outside, safe and loud, but beyond it, in the fog-choked cliffs and silent forests, things still hunted. I couldn't save everyone, but I could try. Mai's card stayed in my pocket, a reminder that some truths never leave you. I walked out into the Seattle noise, traffic drowning out the silence, but I knew I'd never stop listening for the footsteps.